hate your enemy. But I say this to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In this way you will be sons of your Father in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on bad men as well as good, and his rain to fall on honest and dishonest men alike. For if you love those who love you, what right have you to claim any credit? Even the tax collectors do as much, do they not? And if you save your greetings for your brothers, are you doing anything exceptional? Even the pagans do as much, do they not? You must, therefore, be perfect, just as your heavenly Father is perfect. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Ahab said to Elijah, "So you have found me out, O my enemy." Elijah answered, "I have found you out." Words taken from today's first reading from 1 Kings. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. What an intriguing line from Ahab. "So you have found me out, O my enemy." Did Ahab think he could hide from God? And then to call God his enemy. Very interesting direct link to today's Gospel on loving one's enemies. What does this well-known teaching actually mean, to love our enemies? Because when we think about it, the church has enemies. You have enemies because you're a Christian. We just need to recall persecution occurring all over the world. Christians are the single most persecuted group on the planet. So we have enemies. People hate us. But to our enemies, we are supposed to respond with love. God is saying today that it is normal to love your neighbour, but it is a sign that you are Catholic, that you are Christian, when you love even your enemies, people that hate you. What this teaching is not saying is that love makes enemies disappear. This teaching is so often misused. Love of enemies is not some call to declare all people friends, or some mere mindset of positivity. Love of enemies does not stop others from being enemies. The story of Ahab and Jezebel, I think, helps us to understand this teaching. Now, there is no doubt that the story of King Ahab and his pagan wife Jezebel is an example we do not want to follow. One preacher says that their story shows us how original sin infects and perverts the institution of marriage. Their spirit, I think, is always destructive, whether it's in a marriage or in wider society, even within a parish. We might say that it is a spirit that is genuinely anti-Christ. Yesterday, we heard the rather wicked story of lazy King Ahab desiring the land that belonged to Naboth, and his ambitious and cruel wife, Jezebel, organising his death. Today we learn how this was seen by God, and God passes judgment. The judgment is proportionate to the crimes. Ahab did not seek to kill Naboth, but he was lazy, lying in bed, feeling sorry for himself, hoping the problem that he created because he wanted the land would somehow disappear, resolve itself. Then when Naboth dies, Ahab doesn't really hesitate in seizing the land for himself. He doesn't seem to show any remorse or pity. Ahab's laziness condemns him. His laziness makes him an enemy of God. responsibility as a husband and as a king. Whereas Jezebel was the type of wife that would only ask for her husband's input when she wanted to hear her will in a deeper voice, or her will with the authority of a king. Now, these two attitudes have commonly been known as sort of spirits. So the Jezebel spirit, which seeks to manipulate and craves power, and often uses other people to speak for them, to enforce their own will and their own desires. Whereas the spirit of Ahab is the type that causes men to flee from responsibility. A very common problem, I think, in the modern day. We often even rebrand these spirits. A Jezebel type person can be seen as sort of empowered, or we reward them and we say that they're very shrewd or very clever. Whereas an Ahab might be somebody we call tolerant of all different types of things. At the heart of both is a real selfishness, totally opposed to the sacred heart. Both fail to listen to God. The Jezebel is self-serving, and the Ahab is unwilling to make a stand. They are both condemned by God through Elijah. At the end of the passage, Ahab seems to come to some sense and puts on sackcloth, starts doing penance, fasting. He's like Jonah speaking to the Ninevites, seeking to change God's mind. The people of Nineveh then seek to change God's mind, so Ahab seeks to change God's mind. And initially it seems that Ahab may be spared from the judgment, since the Lord says to Elijah that he will not bring the disaster in his days. Rather, what was happening was the punishment that Elijah predicts in terms of his family being killed and problems coming to Israel, that would be stalled for the sake of his penance, for the sake of his desire to atone. But the punishment to himself, crimes that he committed, justice would still be served. So what does become of Ahab? Well, in chapter 1 Kings, Ahab dies of a chance wound, and it is mentioned that the dogs lick up his blood, as it says in the passage, so the judgment is passed. And as for the manipulative Jezebel, she survives for longer, but is then thrown out a window. And when they try to bury her, they discover that there was virtually no body left, because, as was predicted, the body had been eaten up by the dogs. So again, the judgment was passed. But God never stopped loving Ahab and Jezebel, which is the very reason why Elijah is even there telling them the truth and telling them what to expect in the first place. Precisely so that they might change, like Ahab, that he might make penance and atone. Jesus does the same thing. When he came during those years of his earthly life, he does love everyone, but he doesn't stop and not afraid to admonish the people around him, to call them to a better way of living. Like a good father or mother admonishes their children for their own good, so that they might be better in the future, act better in the future. Again, God never stops loving Ahab and Jezebel, but Ahab and Jezebel, they remain enemies to God. Now, there are many today, I think, who possess the spirit of Ahab and Jezebel. They are today enemies of God and enemies of the church. Modern Ahabs and modern Jezebels are not gender specific, so men can be both and women can be both. And I think we can think experiences like that. In our parishes even, Jezebels often seek to insert their own will to others and even undermine the authority of the priests and the others around them. Ahab's may have kind of evil, selfish ideas, but ultimately their problem is in doing nothing, allowing evil, allowing Jezebels to continue to operate, hoping that somehow their apathy will mean that they were innocent. But just as Ahab was discovered, God found him out, so will we who embrace that spirit of Ahab. If these spirits exist unchallenged within a parish or a place, a country or a town, whatever, why would we think that that our judgment would be different? God is extremely clear about what would happen as a result. And why would we think that that's not going to happen here for ourselves? We can see the fruits of Jezebel and a Jezebel spirit and an Ahab spirit when churches have to close because of lack of numbers, lack of people turning up, somehow an apathy maybe of just turning up to church, or a lack of faith, being more interested in themselves and their own ideas rather than really seeking to be consolers and lovers of the heart of Jesus, to really receive Jesus in the Eucharist. They suck the life out of the church. They're often the ones who refuse to hear the call to change, refuse to be challenged. But one day, like their spiritual forebears, Ahab and Jezebel, all the things that they have worked for will be taken away from them. So, and I say this to myself especially, I'm certainly no innocent person in this, but we all must do everything we can to expel Ahab and Jezebel from ourselves.